Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody, well, we are getting more and more attendees, but I think we can already start with the welcome of the webinar, the PMS Progress webinar that we have scheduled for today. So, Katrina, maybe if you can go to the next slide, actually 2 slides ahead. Yeah, so, well, as you already know, this session is going to be recorded and we will make it available through the EMA corporate website, and we will also make it available through our YouTube channel. You will see, you can already see in the bottom part of the slides that we have made available in Slido. Here you can also see a QR code where you can join the Slido tool that we are using for participants to ask any question, give their input. So you can use this tool. You can also go into slido.com, and with the number that you have here, the code, you will be able to join the session where you can rank the different questions on the Q&A. You can write your own questions, and we will have at the end of the webinar around half an hour, maybe a little bit less or a little bit more, a Q&A session where we will be able to answer those questions that you provide through a Slido. If we go to the next slide here, we can see the agenda for today. So we have a welcome introduction that is the one that we are giving right now. And then we have split it or divided the webinar in 3 different sections. We wanted to give you an overview of the different achievements that the PMS team has done so far. Then we will walk you through the ongoing work that we are going, what are the different features that we are developing. And at the end of the webinar, we want to give you an overview of the future PMS work that we still have to do. And at the end, of course, we will have a Q&A session where we will try to answer as many questions as possible from the Slido. So as I already said, please feel free to go there and ask the different questions that you might have. In the next slide, as I already said, these are the goals that we have for this webinar. We want to provide you with a summary of the recent achievements of PMS. We also want to explain the work that we are currently doing. We are implementing different features. We are developing different enablers. So we want to give you an overview of all the work that we are doing. And at the end, we also want to inform all the attendees about the different work that we have to do in the future, and which is the plan that we have for this work in the coming months. So if we go to the next slide, I think, Veronica, over to you. We will give you a bit of background of the PMS activities that we have done so far.
Thank you, Marcos, and good morning to everybody. I'm Veronica. I work with Marcos as a product owner in PMS. So as Marcos was mentioning, just to remind you a little bit of background of what PMS is. So PMS is a product management service, is a project that is it's basically delivered in cooperation with the industry and with the medicine regulatory network. It's a part of the SPORE program. You know, SPORE is aiming to manage standardized data on substance product. Indeed, PMS it is. All as organizations are referential, but in particular PMS, it's a project that is indeed aiming to deliver consolidated and comprehensive medicinal product data in a standard. Our goals of the version product information. We also aim indeed to support the target operating model, which is one of the key functionalities that we delivered as part of our project, in conjunction indeed with the industry and also in particular the network, so the national competent authorities. What PMS will bring and what kind of change will bring to all of you and to us as an authority is basically to allow the storage of information on product data as authorized, which are currently deriving from SCIAMED, which is our EMA database, but also, and most importantly, from XBMPD, which is also called Article 57 databases. So we are migrating this information, and my colleagues will provide you more details in the next slide. We also, as I said, aim to deliver standardized data in ISO DMP standards, but last and not least, we are working to develop a user interface that can allow users to check and query the database directly into PMS, in addition to the API. If I can have the next slide, I will give you a little bit of background on where exactly PMS fits and why. So in the past, some of you may remember that we were working as part of the PORT program. In the last year, we have been merged into and moved into what is called the product lifecycle value stream, which is indeed one of the 5 value streams that the agency has set up in the context and matter of project delivery. Product lifecycle management is basically aiming to group all the projects together, which are aiming to manage product data in the context of the regulatory procedures and activities. Indeed, as you can see in this box on the right side, the PLM value stream product contains the EAF project, the EU SRS Next, UPD, EPI, XPAMET, ECTD version 4.0, regulatory procedure management, and then PMS, which is exactly part of this. Our vision is very simple but also clear. We are aiming to provide and enable seamless exchange of regulatory data within the network, and to facilitate and establish also an exchange of information in an integrated way, which can be the data driven for the network portfolio objective. So the network and the users and the authority can also benefit from PMS. In the next slide, I will give you an overview of who are the people who are actually very deeply working with us in PMS project, and they are involved in all the aspects related to data, process, governance, and also in any step of the deliverables of the project. So you may see that we have a very good representation from industry. We have recently appointed, with support of the portfolio board of the agency, industry subject matter experts, 4 members. Those people are working with the support team to facilitate also the exchange of requests of advice and information that we may ask in the course of the project and are important for the deliverable of the project. On the right side, you see also that we have network subject matter experts. Again, we have 4 representatives, and those the colleagues from the national competent authorities are also bringing their knowledge and their expertise for the benefit of the projects. In addition to that, Marcos and myself, we are the PMS product owners, so we are the EMA staff in charge of managing the project. And also, we have also recently appointed our network product owner, Mr. Dinson Pazis, from the national competent authorities. His role is to facilitate the cooperation across the authorities, and also to support us along the project and in different phases from a technical but also regulatory point of view. If I can have the next slide, one of our achievements, for your information, we did so far, we have been cooperating quite strictly on a daily basis with the EAF project team in delivering several information, several documentation, such as the newsletter, which is the last one has been published this month. You can see, and we will circulate the presentation right after this event. It will be published on the link where you have registered. Then we have also worked together to generate a first version and then some subsequent versions of the Q&A document, which is a joint document between the EAF team and PMS project team, but also some frequently asked questions. In addition to that, we have delivered with our colleagues several trainings, and more will come. If I can have the next slide, I will provide you also another update regarding the publication of the new implementation guidance. You know, the new IDMP implementation guide is the guide that basically provides to the user and the network and any user in PMS information on how to register, how the database is composed, which are the attributes, how to connect to the API, and how the information are migrated, some examples. And in future also we are aiming to publish updated information on the processes, which are one of the key parts, but also related to how to access information and exports, how the data quality is processed, and also how the legacy product data, so the products data that have been migrated from the current database XCVMPD and SIAMED EMA1 are managed into PMS and can be maintained into PMS once the system is open. I have included here the link, so you can access it from there. And now I will end up to my colleague Marcos to continue on the next information we are going to provide you. Over to you, Marcos. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. So I'm sorry because I think there was a bit of problems with the sound, but I think now it's solved. Again, if you have any questions on the presentation from Veronica, because there was maybe a bit of problem with the audio, you have a Slido, so feel free to go there. I hope the audio is better now. But again, you can come back to a Slido and raise any questions. I hope you can also see my screen, and I will continue with the presentation here. So as Veronica was explaining, we have already delivered different chapters of the EUID. One of the chapters is chapter 2, where we have all the data model, the different fields that we have identified to be part of PMS. And here in this slide, you can see a representation of this data model. We have already shown these pictures many times, and we have already explained which are the different colors, the different sections that we have, that each of these boxes is not only one field, but we have different fields and the different relationships between those boxes. So the relationship between the medicinal product, for example, and the regulated authorization information, the relationship with the different manufacturers and the manufacturers' business operations. We have data about therapeutic indication, data about the packages, which are the different package items, the manufacturer items, the different self-license conditions. We also have information about the ingredients and the pharmaceutical products. So as you can see, the data model of PMS is very big. We have very different data. And again, what in this part of the webinar, we are talking about what we have already achieved. So in this part, we have already explained this as well, is where the data is coming from in PMS. So as you already know as well, we have the SIAMED2, which is our the EMA internal database where we have stored centrally authorized product data. What we have already done is a data mapping exercise and the migration of this data from SIAMED into PMS. So PMS already contains centrally authorized products and centrally authorized product data since 2022. It's already been used by the PLM EAF and by other different groups internally at EMA. What have we done with this data mapping and the migration? So as you know, in SciAmed2, a product is an umbrella which can contain several medicinal products. And then inside of this medicinal product, it can contain multiple presentations. So you can see here in SciAmed, for example, we have the procedure number and the inventive name. We have taken an example. We have also taken the form and the strength. So we have two strengths with the same authorized pharmaceutical dose form. But then if we select this strength, you can see that we have different presentations. How do we migrate this information into PMS? So this is the product in SciAmed. We would have a SkillRNs with this product number. This is the product umbrella in SciAmed. And then each of those strengths would correspond to a medicinal product in PMS. So in PMS, we would have one medicinal product for the 120 milligrams gastro-resistant tablets and another one for the 30 milligrams. Moreover, if I select the 120 milligrams medicinal product, I would have all these presentations that would correspond to packaged medicinal products in PMS. And this is what we have done. We have taken the data that we have in SciAmed, we have made these agrupations, and we have migrated this information into PMS. We have also said that we have done a mapping exercise. What does that mean? That means that SciAmed contains data that can already be mapped to existing terms in other sport services, actually in S, O, and R. So, for example, if I have this information for a medicinal product, I have the dose form, which is 120 milligrams gastro-resistant tablets. I can map, for example, in this case, milligrams from SciAmed to this RMS ID, gastro-resistant tablets with this RMS ID. What I can also do is map into SMS. I can map the active substance that I have in SciAmed, in this case is dimethyl fumarate. It can be mapped to this ID in SMS. And I can also do the same with the organization. So the MA holder of this product is Almirall SA, which has a mapping to OMS, and you can see here the org ID of this organization. So we have done this mapping exercise with the data that we have in SciAmed, and we have done the migration into PMS. Obviously, once we've done this migration, this is again a representation that you have seen many times of the data model of PMS. It's a simplified version of the other one, the colorful one that you saw before, where you can see the different sections and which of those sections will contain data from SciAmed. So whenever you see any blue spot, is because we will have data coming from SciAmed in those sections. You have, for example, in the medicinal product section, orphan designation, cross-references, manufacturers, the authorized dose form, but you also have information about package components or ingredients of the manufacturer items. You can also see that there are sections where we don't have data because we don't store this information in SciAmed. For example, we don't have pharmaceutical products, we don't store the MEDRA codes of the therapeutic indications, we don't store the data of the QPPV. So these sections will be empty when they are already empty because we have migrated this data from SciAmed, and this data is missing there. As an example of which is the data that we have migrated. So for example, from the medicinal product, we have the name of the medicinal product as stored in SciAmed. We also have the full indication text or the legal status of supply. Regarding the marketing authorization, for example, we have procedure data. We have the MA numbers, the dates of authorization. We have information about the applicant or the regulator. In relation to the manufacturing business operation, we have the different manufacturers as well as the manufacturing business operation. And we also have the dates when the manufacturer was authorized, if it's expired or if it's active. And we have information also about the package. For example, we have the pack size. We have information about the description and even materials that we are stored in SciAmed. Where can you see this information? Well, PMS, as we already say, already contains CAP data, as we have described before. The problem or the fact is that in the PLM portal, you can only see for the moment a specific data elements coming from PMS. So for the time being, you can only see, for example, the full name as coming from SCIAMET, the authorized dose form, the active substance, the country of authorization, as well as the ME holder. You can see the MA number and the MRP DCP number and also the PMS ID. We have more information in PMS already. The thing is, in the PLM portal, we are for the moment only showing these specific fields. There is a link to the PLM portal. You can already register to have access to the PLM portal, and you can see all the centrally authorized products that we have in PMS. We have more than 3,000 CAPS medicinal products in the PLM portal, and they are already used not only by the inspections team, but also for the web-based electronic application form. So if you have any variation for essentially authorized products, you can already register to the PLM portal and start performing or creating your web-based DAFs and submit your variations using this application form. Something that we have also achieved is the generation of the PMS API. It is aligned with Chapter 2 of the EUIG. The only thing is, for the moment, it's only used internally by EMA. We are working, and we will explain it later, on the security and access management of the PMS API, so we can give access to NCAs and also to industry. But for the moment, it's only available to be used internally at EMA. As a summary of what we have already done, and I will repeat this every time we have this slide. It's important. This slide does not represent any timelines or sequence of release. These are just pieces of work or events that we have delivered, that we are working on, or we will deliver. But again, this does not represent timelines or sequences of release. So as a summary of what we have explained so far, we have already migrated all the CAPS products into PMS. We have also released different versions of the EUIG, different chapters, and then each of those chapters have a different version. So as a whole, we can say that we have released different versions of the EUIG. And in relation to the PMS API, we have already delivered the API. The only thing is, for the moment, it can only be used internally at EMA. If we focus on the PLM variation form, then it can already be used only for CAPS for the moment. And in the PLM portal, only a subset of fields are visible from PMS. So this is important. One thing is the data that we have in PMS. Another thing is the data that can be seen for the moment in the PLM portal. If we go to the next part of the next section of the webinar, here we want to talk about which is the ongoing work that we are doing in PMS. So as Veronica has explained before, we have finally been able to establish a group of SMEs. We have representatives from industry, from NCAs. We have also the network PO. So with this group of SMEs, we are working on different work items that we need to deliver. We receive their input on different epics and features. One of the things that we are doing, for example, with them is developing and discussing the product user interface. We are designing how the user interface should look like, the different graphics, where the data should be located, how the data should look like in the product user interface. For the moment, they are supporting us on the development of the view pages, so how people will be able to see the data that we have in PMS through this product user interface. And we will start now also working on the edit functionalities of this product user interface. So if there is a change to be done in the PMS data, how this change can be done through the product user interface. They are also supporting us on the setup of the user access and security management of the PLM portal, more specifically on the product UI, so related to PMS. Industries, for example, giving us the different requirements they might have for the different user roles, how they can access the data. We have also asked NCAs. It's a bit easier, the role of NCAs, because they don't have so many restrictions, or let's say the security and access management is not that different or not difficult for them. We might receive more requirements from industry, but we are working with them on this part of the work. And obviously, we are also working on the refinement of the EUIG and the PMS data model. Sometimes we receive different questions through service desk or through different ways where we need to reply, or we need to maybe improve how the implementation guide is written. We need to, make adjustments. We need to explain better. So we work with the SMEs also in order to have a better EUIG that everybody can understand. Obviously, the SMEs are also supporting us with insights and identification of technical and business solutions. So as we were explaining, they are helping us with the product UI. They are helping us. They will also help us with the implementation of the API. All the different work that we need to do, we will always count on them with their support. And obviously, every time we have a PI event as part of this agile way of working, we also discuss with them, and we will also do it now that we have a PI event next month, the prioritization of the PMS user stories and the different features, which are the priorities that we have for the next PI, so for the next quarter. More things that we are working on right now. So we have also explained this before, the split of products from SciAmed. As we have already explained, there are some specific products in SciAmed which are not following the IDMPS structure. What does that mean? PMS defines a medicinal product based on the name as authorized in Section 1 of the SMPC. So the name of the medicinal product is one of the defining elements of a medicinal product. Nevertheless, SciAmed does not capture the full name as authorized. So this situation leads to a case where SciAmed might have one medicinal product, but we need to split this product as part of the migration, because we need to create maybe two PMS medicinal products because we have two different names. We have implemented a logic to split these products, and as we have already advised that, but also the EAF team has also advised this. Those products should not be used for the moment to submit any variation, or at least long variations, because one of the deliverables that we will deliver actually during this quarter, beginning of next quarter, is the split of those products. As an example, you can see here in this slide is Imobic. So you can see that in SciAmed, we have only two products, each of them with three presentations. So we have Imobic 70 milligram solution for injection and the 140 milligram solution for injection with three presentations each of them. Nevertheless, if we go to the SMPC, this medicinal product has been authorized with two different names depending on the presentation. So we have Imobic 70 milligrams solution for injection in pre-filled pen, or solution for injection in pre-filled syringe. That means that in PMS, I need to have two medicinal products in this case, and another two for the 140 milligrams case. What we, for the moment, the migration, and you can see this in the PLM portal, we have only two products. With this new data release that we will deliver soon, we will have 4 medicinal products, each of them with their specific presentations. So at some point you will see that the your product in the PLM portal will change. Instead of having one medicinal product for Aimovig 70 milligrams, you will have 2 medicinal products. Just as a general rule, in case you don't know if any of those, if this case might apply to any of your products, if you have this, if for the same strength and dose form, you have different full names authorized, then these products will be split in PMS. So, for example, if you have for the 70 milligram solution for injection case, you have 2 different full names in the SMPC, then this product will be split in the following months in PMS, and obviously afterwards in the PLM portal. So this is about SciAmed. Now, if we talk about the work that we are doing from XCVMPD, you know, we have migrated CAP data from SciAmed. This is already in PMS. Now what we are doing is migrating the data that we have in XCVMPD. You know that in XCVMPD we have CAPS, but also non-CAPS product data. We have also done a mapping exercise, and we are doing the migration of this data. And for the data that we have for CAPS, we are doing what we call the match and merge. As a reminder, I have included here that what we are migrating from XCVMPD is the last version of non-nullified records. It doesn't matter if it has been validated by EMA or if it has not been validated. We have taken, or we are taking, the last version of non-nullified records to be migrated into PMS. That means that during this year, in the following months, in PMS, we will have centrally and non-centrally authorized products, and therefore this information will be in the PLM portal. Again, as we said, for SciAmed in XCVMPD, we also have data that can be mapped to the different data management services. So we can map data to SMS, to OMS, and to RMS. An example is, for example, with SMS, we have this active substance. If you go to SMS, you can see that we have this mapping in SMS. For OMS as well, we can have this organization ID. This is for Ken Pharma in this case. You can see in OMS the mapping to the different organizations in XCVMPD. And the same with data from the referentials. In this case, film coated tablet with this RMS ID. Maybe it's a bit small, but this is the mapping to the XCVMPD term. So this is the mapping exercise that we have done with all the data that we have in XCVMPD, and we are now migrating this information into PMS. This is how the representation of the data model would look like, with data coming from SciAmed in blue and data coming from Article 57 in yellow. You can see that now we have more sections that are going to be completed. So for example, we have the pharmaceutical product section that is coming from Article 57. We have QPPV and pharmacovigilance contact also coming from Article 57. Medicinal product name will come from Article 57, but we still have missing sections like the shelf life, the marketing status, the devices section. This information will be missing, and there will be an enrichment, let's say, enrichment phase in the future, and we are working on that to allow industry and industry to provide this information into PMS. If we migrate the data from, so when we migrate the data from XCVMPD into PMS, you know that for CAPS, we have 1 EV code per presentation, and we also have 4 records per presentation because we need to submit the information for 4 different countries. One is Europe, but the other 3 are Liechtenstein, Norway, and Iceland. That means that for each of the presentations for a centrally authorized product, we have 4 records in XCVMPD. You already know that we already have migrated the CAP data into PMS. So what we are doing now is what we call a match and merge protocol to be able to first of all match the records that we have in ExhibMPD with the records that we have in PMS from SCIAMET. Once we have matched those records, we do the merge, and what we do is include different data from ExhibMPD, or we keep the data that we have migrated into PMS from SCIAMET. This is an example. In PMS, we already have this PMS ID for this medicinal product, Skilarence 120 milligrams gastro-resistant tablets, with these different EMI numbers for the different presentations. In ExhibMPD, we also have these EMI numbers for the different presentations. So we are doing the match and merge. Once we are able to match the different presentations for the same medicinal product, we merge the data. In this case, you can see that the name in ExhibMPD and the name in SCIAMET is different. So we have built different merge business rules because we need to define where the survival data is coming from. So, for example, if I have a field in SCIAMET, I don't have a field in SCIAMET, and I don't have a field in ExhibMPD, then this field will be empty in PMS. For example, the storage conditions. I don't have storage conditions in SCIAMET. I don't have storage conditions in ExhibMPD, so this field will be empty for the moment in PMS. In other cases, I have data in SCIAMET. I don't have data in ExhibMPD. So the business rule is to keep the data migrated from SCIAMET. This is, for example, the case of the manufacturers. I have manufacturer data in SCIAMET. I don't have it in ExhibMPD. So the manufacturer data will remain from SCIAMET once I go into PMS. Then we have the opposite case where I don't have data from SCIAMET, but I do have data in ExhibMPD. For example, the MEDRA codes. This information, therefore, in PMS will come from ExhibMPD always. And then we have the last case where I have data from SCIAMET. I also have data from ExhibMPD, and I need to define which is going to be the survival source, or which is going to be the source of the data. It will depend on the data field. For example, for the full name, we have decided that the ExhibMPD data will override the data that we have in SCIAMET. Again, it depends on the field and in the data element. So if you go to chapter 7 of the EUID, there you have all the business rules that we have defined for the merge protocol for CAPS. Obviously, for non-CAPS, as we only have data from ExhibMPD, all the data will always be from ExhibMPD. In the case of non-CAPS, we might have different scenarios. We can have non-cap data at presentation level. That means that I have one EV code per presentation. This is the cases where I have the MA number assigned at package level, but I can also have records at medicinal product level. So I don't have presentations at all in ExhibMPD. These are the cases, for example, where all the presentations have the same authorization number, and therefore EMI holders don't usually provide the presentations into ExhibMPD, which is totally fine because it's aligned with chapter 3.2 of ExhibMPD. We also have specific countries like Belgium, Finland, and Luxembourg, where we have more than one record for the same medicinal product, because applicants are submitting the one record per each of the official languages in these countries. In order to migrate the data from ExhibMPD, we have defined different a business rule where we are grouping different records under the same PMS medicinal product. So for all the records in ExhibMPD that contains the same marketing authorization holder, the same authorization country, the same active substance or substances and the strength, the same authorized dose form, and for all the countries where I only have one name, when all these fields are the same, I'm grouping them under the same medicinal product, because we understand that these records belong to the same medicinal product. In those countries where I have the same medicinal product but with different names, then I cannot use the product full name as a grouping field. In this case, what I use is the authorization number. So where I have the same fields as before, plus the authorization number, then I group those products under the same, those records, sorry, from ExhibitMPD under the same medicinal product in PMS. Providing examples, I think, is the best way to illustrate how are we doing this. So in this case, for example, we have 3 records in ExhibitMPD for the same marketing authorization holder, the same active substances and strengths. I have the same pharmaceutical dose form, the same full presentation name, but I have different authorization numbers. In this case, I have therefore 3 EV codes in ExhibitMPD, 1 per presentation. What I'm doing in PMS is I'm grouping those records into 1 medicinal product with 3 different packages. Another example, in this case, I have the same MA holder in the same country with the same active substances and different strengths. I have the same pharmaceutical product, but you can see that I have different presentations names. So I have the 300 milligrams, 100 milligrams, and 200 milligrams with different authorization numbers. In this case, I have 3 EV codes in ExhibitMPD, 1 per product. So in PMS, I will have 3 medicinal products with 1 packaged medicinal product underneath. So this is to explain how we are migrating the data from ExhibitMPD. Now, we have already explained, okay, the migration that we are doing is coming from SciAmed and from ExhibitMPD into PMS. But now the question is, how do we maintain the data in PMS? How do we, okay, we have done the migration, the initial load, but then we need to keep this data in PMS updated. How is it done so far? So it's going to be done through what we call the deltas to PMS. So for the moment, any change that is made in SciAmed2, but the EMA data stewards, will be also reflected into PMS. So if I have, for example, a new marketing authorization for a centrally authorized product, it will be created in SciAmed, and therefore it will be created in PMS. Not only with the data coming from SciAmed, but also with the data coming from ExhibitMPD. So any change done by the MA holders into ExhibitMPD, when you include new authorized products into ExhibitMPD, when you make updates to ExhibitMPD data, this information will also be propagated into PMS. So for the moment, PMS will be maintained through the deltas, either from SciAmed with the changes performed by the EMA data stewards, or with the changes performed in ExhibitMPD by the applicants. This is the way that PMS will be kept updated for the moment. It's important for you to understand that the messages that are coming from ExhibitMPD will stay in a queue and will be processed in PMS. We are working to increase the performance of those deltas. At the beginning, you might need to wait maybe for a couple of hours or maybe a day, depending on how big is the queue of messages coming from ExhibitMPD. But the idea is that at some point, this information will be updated almost in real time. The same logics as the initial load are used in the deltas. So if I'm including new 3 records for a medicinal product authorized in Belgium, because I have 3 different names, only 1 medicinal product will be created in PMS. And the same, any change that is done in ExhibitMPD then will be reflected in PMS. That is an important slide for you to understand how, for the moment, PMS is going to be updated and maintained. So this is for the migration. We are working on the migration of national products into PMS. And now what we are also working on is the product user interface, what we explained before. We are working on the view pages of the product user interface. This product user interface, as you can see here, will be located in the PLM portal. And this UI will allow users to, first of all, see medicinal products data. These are the view pages that we are working on now. And in the future, it will allow users to also maintain product data. Different points that we are discussing right now with SMEs and also internally at EMA are the different user roles for industry and MCAs, and also the security and access management. Obviously, we are discussing a lot of things like how the pages should look like, for example, the filtering options, if we want to export data, how it should look like. So all these things are under discussion internally and also with the SMEs. You can see here, this is coming from the test environment of the product UI, where we have this product data management, where you will be able to see the data from PMS, different filters. You will also be able to go into the different details of PMS. We have here, as you can see, the different sections of the EUIG. You have the medicinal product, the packaged medicinal product, the pharmaceutical product, with all the information that we have stored in PMS. So this is what we are looking for, what we are working on. You can also see more details on the product UI in the different system demos and different ceremonies that we have as part of the Agile framework. So if you want to learn more about that, we recommend you to join all these different ceremonies where we will be showing the product UI, among other things. Something that we are also working on right now is the PMS API. As we explained before, we are working on the security and access management of the PMS API for industry and for MCAs. For the moment, we are working on the read access. So the idea is that users will be able to connect to the PMS API, and they will be able to see medicinal product data through the API. So machine-to-machine connection, they will be able to see the medicinal product data that we have in PMS through the API. Again, this slide, we are not representing any timelines or any sequences of releases. This is the part of the work that we have already completed. And in relation to the work that we are doing right now, we have the migration of data from XCVMPD into PMS. We are also working on different updates on the EUIG. As part of the deltas, obviously, any missing products and corrections that are needed in PMS can be done through XCVMPD. We are working on the read access to the PMS API and on the product user interface view pages. As part of the PLM variation form, then we will you will be able to see CAPs and also NAPs, and you will be able to use the PLM variation form for these products. For the moment, and as we explained before, only a subset of fields will be visible from PMS. So PMS will contain all this information that we have explained before, but in the PLM portal, for the moment, only a subset of fields will be seen. As the last part of the webinar, we wanted to talk about the future work that we are planning for PMS. So obviously, for the product user interface, we need to work a lot on this user interface. We will improve the view pages of the UI. We are already working on the improvement of these pages, but at some point, we will release them and we will maintain those pages. We will try to improve, for example, the exporting capabilities, the filtering capabilities. We will be working on the improvements of those pages. Nevertheless, in the future and in the near future, we need to work on the edit pages of the UI. As I already explained, these edit pages will allow users to modify the data directly in PMS through the product UI. So what we need to do is to build all the necessary processes behind this user interface. So we need to support the enrichments, we need to support the corrections, the notifications, or the updates. So this is one of the biggest part of the work that we need to do for the product UI. We need to build all these different user journeys depending on the different scenarios that we find. In relation to the PMS API, we also need to work on the PMS API because we need to support the machine-to-machine connections to PMS. So we need to work on the read access and also obviously on the write access through the API. We need to allow users not only to view the data, but also to submit changes using their gateway in case they want to use the machine-to-machine connection. We are already working, but we need to work more on the Fire profiles. We will generate those Fire profiles and we will make them public because we have already received the comment that this is a very important piece of work that we need to deliver. So we will be working on this in the future. As a summary of the different epics and features, so as you know, we are working on this agile framework. So we have different epics identified, and as part of these epics, then we have features, user stories, etc. But we have wanted to make here a summary of the different epics that we have already identified. You can see here that we have split them in green and red, depending on if the work has already started or if the work has to be done. Green doesn't mean that we have delivered this yet, is that we have already started with this epic. If we have the epic in red, it means that we have not started yet with the deployment. So you can see here that we have already started with the SciMed and the XCVMPD integration. These two epics are related to the migration of data. This one, data from SciMed, the other one, the data from XCVMPD, and also keep the data in PMS. So it means that as part of these epics, we also have the deltas, as I explained before. We have another, let's say, group of epics as part of the data quality and exchange and synchronization of different services. We have one epic related to the ISO IDMP implementation. This is work related to the API, so read and write capabilities of the PMS API. As part of this group of epics, we have identified two more epics that we need to start working on. Is what we call the Fire adapter. This epic will allow users to reuse all the Fire messages to update PMS. So for example, you know that there is in the web-based EAF, there is a Fire message behind. So the idea is to be able to reuse this Fire message to make updates to the PMS data. So we have created an epic called the Fire adapter. We also have identified the PMS to XCVMPD sync epic, and it's we will be working on it because if we want to decommission XCVMPD submissions, we need to synchronize PMS and XCVMPD. That is because XCVMPD is used by different systems internally at EMA, so we cannot just let's say decommission XCVMPD and we forget about it, but we want to allow users to submit only data to PMS. We want to avoid duplicate submissions, so this is why we have this epic here. Then we have another epic for the product UI. So here is what I explained before. We have the view pages and the edit pages. We have already started working on these different in these two parts of the epic. And we will need to work on the PMS processes, so implement all the processes that I explained before, the enrichments, the corrections, notifications, etc., using the product UI. And also another epic or part of this product UI epic is the IDMP compliance. We need to make sure that the data that we are receiving in PMS is IDMP compliant. We want to do data profiling and generation of acknowledgements, different processes to make sure that the data that we are receiving is IDMP compliant and it can be trusted data that can be used by the network. So as a summary, and again, this is not a representation of timelines, it's not a representation of a sequence of releases that we are planning to do. It just represents pieces of work that we have already done, or pieces of work that we are working on, or pieces of work that we will be delivering. So as this is, I think, my last slide, I will go a bit through the different steps. Work that we have completed, we have already migrated the data for CAPS into PMS. It can already be used in the PLM variation form, even though only a subset of fields are visible in the PLM portal. We have also delivered different versions of the EUIG, and in relation to the PMS API, it is available, but only for internal use at EMA. For the ongoing work that we are doing, we are working on the migration of data from XCBMPD into PMS. That will mean that in the PLM portal and obviously in the PLM variation form can be used for CAPS and non-CAPS, or will be available in a couple of months to be used, the PLM variation form for CAPS and NAPS. Again, only a subset of fields from PMS will be visible in the PLM portal. We are also working on some updates of the EUIG. For example, we will update soon specific parts of Chapter 7. We might also deliver a new minor version of Chapter 2 of the EUIG. So you will have all the information about the updates of the EUIG that we will do. As part of the migration of data from XCBMPD into PMS, we have the deltas. So any missing product or correction that should be done to PMS must be done through XCBMPD because we have the deltas to keep PMS updated. We are also working on the security and access management of the Read PMS API, and we are also working on the product UI view pages. As part of the future work, we need to work on the write capability of the PMS API. We need to finalize the product UI with all the different processes behind. So in the future, we will be able to have enrichments, updates, corrections, notifications, etc., directly into PMS. We also we will be able to reuse the data from the PLM forms to update PMS. So instead of updating PMS from XCBMPD or from SciAMed, we will reuse the data that we already have in the PLM forms or submissions directly into PMS. That will mean that we will be in a position to decommission XCBMPD submissions. In relation to the future work or the future releases on the EAF, the PLM EAF, we will be, the team will be able to implement the structured data changes. That will mean that we will be able to see more information coming from PMS, and we will be able to use a structured data for those changes. And obviously, the team will be working on other PLM forms, like the new MA forms. There are also veterinary forms, etc., etc. So, in a nutshell, and just on time, this is the summary of all the work that we are doing, the work that we have done, the work that we are doing, and also the work that will be done as part of the PMS project. So I think I'm happy now to give the floor to Katerina, because I think you will be sharing the different questions that we have received in Slido. So I think I can.
Okay. Thank you, Marcos. So I will now share the Slido. So the most voted question is the following. Please confirm which XCV-MPD data enrichment activities should be completed by industry before migration.
Okay, so in principle, there is no activity needed on XCV-MPD data enrichments, because in theory, you should already be compliant with the XCV-MPD guidances, and you should already have all the products, all your products in XCV-MPD. Therefore, there is no need to provide additional data. What we are going to do is just take the data that we have from XCV-MPD and migrate it into PMS. There is no way to provide additional data than the one in XCV-MPD. There is no need to provide additional presentations if you don't want to do it, because XCV-MPD already allows this. There will be a moment, and this is part of the work that we need to do. We will allow users to do enrichments in PMS. So you will be able to provide all the presentations, all the packages, etc., directly in PMS. So in principle, there is no need to do any changes in XCV-MPD.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Have any NCAs committed yet to using PMS as the agency's de facto product database? It does to replace the member states' existing national database?
I think PMS is not aiming to replace any national database. It is true that national competent authorities can benefit of the data that we will have in PMS, but it is not our aim to replace any database. So no, we don't have any NCAs committed to replace their databases from PMS.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Changes which are out of scope of EAF, for example, QPPV update, how will it be managed post XCV-MPD decommission? Does it require to directly submit to PMS?
Yes, that is correct. So one of the business processes that we have to implement in the product UI, for example, is what we have called notifications. Maybe we need to change the name, but for the moment we are calling them like this. These are the changes of the QPPV, the PSMFL, the pharmacovigilance inquiry information. All these fields are maintained not as part of a variation. So for the moment, these changes are done directly in XCV-MPD. The idea is that those changes will be made in PMS once we decommission the XCV-MPD submissions. Also, the idea is that those changes can also be done through the API in case the user wants to use machine-to-machine submission instead of using the user interface.
Okay, thank you. Next one. How will you manage data correctness after migration to PMS? Will you contact QPPVs? Will be a transition period for correction validation of product data by VMAHs?
Okay, so again, what we are doing right now is migrating the data that we have in XCV-MPD to PMS. So once this migration, so first of all, once the migration starts and once the migration finished and you can see all your products in the PLM portal, we will announce that. So you will be able to see your products. We are not going to make a validation of these products or the migration into PMS. So we are not going to contact any QPPV. Users will be able to see these products in PMS. You will be able to check if the data is correct or not. And also, in case you need to make any changes to the data because due to data quality issues, maybe in XBMPD, the migration is not correct, you can either go to XBMPD as I explained and make the necessary corrections, or in case you don't see your products, etc., you can also contact us through the service desk. But we are not doing any data correctness. We are just migrating the data as we have it in XBMPD.
Okay, thank you. When EMA is planning to publish EU IDMP-IG with Chapter 3, 5, 4, and 9, what's the planned timeline?
So we don't have concrete timelines for the moment. We know that we need to deliver different chapters of the EUIG. So for example, chapter 4 is regarding the data quality assurance. So we are working on, for example, this IDMP compliance EPIC. Once we have discussed all these points, when we have agreed on how the data quality assurance is going to be done, we will be in a position to create this chapter and deliver it. But as you can see from the webinar, we have identified the pieces of work. Now we are also working on the priorities and how to deliver each of those parts of work that we need to do. So we are not in a position right now to say we will deliver these chapters in 2 months or by the end of September, because we need to work on the different pieces of work. But we will announce for sure and with time any change in the plans that we have.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Who should maintain the missing data which does not come from SciMed into PMS? Should the industry update the missing data in PMS directly? If yes, by when?
So again, this is not only missing data from SciMed, it's also missing data from XBMPD. As I explained in one of the diagrams, there are quite a lot of fields that will be missing because the information is not captured in SciMed or in XBMPD. And as I already explained, we are working on the capability to enrich the data, either using the product UI or the API. So for the moment, there is no way. You don't need to submit any data to PMS because the capability is not there. Once we have built all these capabilities, you will be in a position to submit the data. But again, we are trying to identify the different priorities and how to build a roadmap to deliver each of these parts. For the moment, the message is no change on the processes that we already have. Data is submitted into XBMPD or SciMed by the EMA data stewards and is updated in PMS. If we don't have the data in any of those sources, then this data will be missing for the moment in PMS.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Could you kindly explain what happens if some data is not migrated to PMS and the data field is not available in any source in that situation? The company will only provide the data to EMA after the migration.
Yes, well, this is related to the previous question. Yes, it will be done as part of the enrichment. So any missing field will be provided as part of the enrichment. So missing, let's say, presentations or the data regarding the storage conditions, data regarding devices, this will have to be provided to PMS after the migration and once we have delivered all this. The edit pages, the processes on the product UI, the write capabilities to the PMS API, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do you foresee any changes to the Chapter 2 to accommodate more data elements?
So we have done a couple of, I think, minor updates on Chapter 2 of the EUID. These are not major changes. We are not including huge amount of new fields. We will try to deliver this as soon as possible, but we are still working on improving also the readability and providing additional examples of some of the data elements, but we don't foresee huge changes on Chapter 2.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When is it expected the next version of EUIG containing new chapters?
Yeah, so again, this is related. It will depend on the chapters. So, for example, Chapter 7, we will provide a bit of update before the data release that is planned for the end of this quarter, beginning of next quarter. Chapter 2, we will try to also publish it as soon as possible, as soon as we have closed the couple of topics that we still have pending. So yeah, it will depend on the chapter, but we will announce it for sure anytime we make any update on the EUIG.
Okay, thank you. Next question. When will the PLM portal contain the full scope of data elements as shown in PMS?
Yeah, so this is what I explained on the product user interface, the view pages. So the work is already quite advanced. You can see now in June we have the system demo. I will show you the different pages, how a full product will look like in the PLM portal. And we are discussing internally when would be the best moment and when are we going to be ready to deliver this part of the product UI. One of the missing points that we still have and that we are discussing with the SMEs are the roles for industry and NCA. So you know that to be part of the or to get access into the PLM portal, you need to have different roles depending on the level of access that you can have to product data, etc. So we are working with that. We are working on that with the SMEs. So as soon as we have this ready and we have had some discussions internally, we will be able to deliver this part. From my point of view, as soon as possible, but you know, we still need to work on those specific points that we need to deliver.
Okay, thank you. Next question. If we have new RIM systems, can we integrate our fields data into sport databases directly? If possible, who will help us in getting this access?
Okay. So in theory, yes. I recommend you to, you can either review one of the webinars that we had, I think a month ago about the Sport API. We will also do new webinars after summer in relation to the whole sport, all the sport services. We will also have another one for the API. So I think the best way to get to know how to get this access is reviewing this webinar again, where we explain all the information about APIs, how to connect to the SMS API, and etc. etc. And again, we are, for the specific one for PMS, we are working on the security and access management. We will need to have a specific webinar for that once we have agreed on the strategy to get access to the PMS API. But for the moment, as we don't have this information, I cannot really provide you with more information about that.
Okay, thank you. Next one. You showed the mapping to OMS at the level of the organization ID. However, Chapter 2 has mapping at the level of location ID. Can you explain how you will go from organization ID to location ID when uploading from SciMed to PMS?
Yeah, so it was done on purpose, the fact that I showed the org ID and not the log ID, because just in case it's confidential, I have just made the link to or show the picture of the org ID. But in SciAmed and also in XCMPD, we have the full address of the ME holder. So that's why we are able to do the link between the address that we have in SciAmed and in XCMPD with the log ID. And this is what we have used to do this mapping between these two systems and OMS. So it was done on purpose, just because I didn't want to show the log ID of a specific company.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Will the gray boxes be migrated later? When? Or how are these data entered?
Yeah, so it will be entered in the future, no, obviously not by EMA because we don't have this data. It will have to be entered with the enrichments. And again, I think I have already maybe replied to this question. Whenever we have all the capabilities in place, the product UI is available to provide enrichments, and also the enrichments can be done through the PMS API. So whenever this is ready, this data will have to be submitted.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How many data fields will be added, if any, if Chapter 2 was updated? Would any data fields be removed?
Yes, so I think we will add a couple of fields because we are also discussing with the EAF colleagues some fields that are also useful for the EAF. So we might be adding a couple of fields. To be honest, I'm sorry, I cannot really answer this question because this is mainly managed by Veronica, that unfortunately had to leave. But we can provide more information, maybe replying through the Slido. I think we are not removing any field, and the fields that we are just including are a couple of them, but are really easy fields. We are not making huge changes to the EUID.
Okay. So the next question is about timelines. So when will you be able to provide timelines?
So thank you for the feedback. I can agree with the thing that is a nice slide, but I also think that is useful. We know that you have also always been requested for timelines for the different deliverables that we need to do. But we also think that showing the pieces of work that we need to provide and that we know that we need to work on, it's also useful for industry, for NCAs, for the different users to know that we know which is the work that we need to deliver. Now, we are working internally and as part of this agile framework on building a timeline that we can really adjust to, that is also accurate, and that you can trust on these timelines. It's quite complex because now we have different projects that are involved and are dependent on the PMS deliverables. So it's not an easy exercise, and please trust us when we say that we are working very hard on trying to deliver good timelines and a good sequence of the next deliverables that we are going to do. So we understand that you need timelines. What we have tried to do in this webinar is provide you with the information on, okay, this is the work that we need to do. Now, we are also working on the different sequences of the events that we will have.
Okay, thank you. Next question. CAPs have been migrated from XCVMPD to PMS with 4 records, EU, IS, and OLI, but only one set, the EU one, can be seen currently from the PLM EAF. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So for the moment, only the EU records are migrated, but from SciAmed. That's why you can only see the EU record in the PLM EAF. Now, when we migrate the data from ExhibMPD, then you will have the 4 records. But for the moment, as only SciAmed has been migrated, then only 1 record can be seen.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can we do the mock submission to PMS from our RIMS? Is a way EMA gateway opened?
Yeah, so this is what we talk about. This is the PMS API. For the moment, only can be used internally at EMA because we are working on the security and access management for the external users. Once we have this, the setup of the security and access management, you will be able to view the data that we have in PMS. But unfortunately, for the moment, the write capability, so the capability to perform submissions to PMS will not be available. So yeah, the answer is, for the moment, there is no way to submit to the PMS API.
Okay, thank you. I think we can do a last one. So there are differences in ExhibMPD in substances code for the same substance for the AMP in different countries. Will it be a problem after migration in PMS? For example, E1 AMP sub 20671 and the other sub 02622 MIG for hypromelose is used.
Yeah, so this is because we can have different terms for the same substance. So you know that in SMS, and there is also a control vocabulary list in the published in ExhibMPD, that we have for the same substance a preferred term, but we also have translations and we have other terms. All these codes from ExhibMPD have been mapped to the same SMS substance, because at the end it's the same substance. The only difference is that we have a preferred term, or we have alias or translations, etc. So that's the beauty of PMS, where we have different terms in ExhibMPD because we have translations, etc., etc. We will have the same SMS ID or RMS ID or OMS ID in PMS.
Okay, thank you. So we have just a few minutes left, so I think we can close the Q&A. I will now open a poll in Slido. Can show you where you can leave a quick feedback on the webinar, and then later I will also share with you a post-event survey where you will be able to leave a more detailed feedback, and it will just take you not more than 5 minutes. So I hand over to you, Marcos, for the closing. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so we have 2 minutes. I just wanted to thank you everybody for attending the webinar. We have tried to give you an update of all the work that we have done and that we are doing, and again, for you to see the work that we have identified as part of the PMS project. You can see that we have also dependencies with other projects, and obviously, therefore, we are working on the priorities, trying to identify the connections with other projects, which are the needs also for other projects. We also recommend you to assist to the different ceremonies that we have as part of the Agile framework. So you have the system demos, you also have then different meetings where EMA is explaining you the progress that we are doing, or that we are having on the different projects. So we really appreciate your support. We will try to reply to your questions, but you also know that you can submit your questions through service desk. And yeah, happy to have had another webinar with you and to share all the information that we are able to share with you about PMS and the different projects. So again, thank you very much. Have a good day and see you in the next meetings. Thank you.